Welcome back, folks, to the Get a Grip on Life podcast. On today's show, I have Daniel Boucher, the regional coordinator for the People's Party of Canada. Yeah, you're ready to hear from them. They're surging in the polls right now. That's right. And I think those polls are wrong, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But before we do, I want to tell you, you ever thought of starting a podcast? Most podcast listeners, they want to start a podcast. If you do, Get a Grip Studios is the place to go in Toronto. Go to getagripstudios.com, fully virtual, fully in person as well. Check it out, getagripstudios.com. What's up, Daniel?
Oh, it's an exciting day, exciting times. It's been so busy. So I can't wait for September 20th to come and go. I'm sure my wife does too.
Yeah, I bet. So just so everyone's watching, it's Tuesday, September 14th. We're 6 days away from the election?
That's right. Yeah, so it's been hectic all over the country. Candidates have been knocking on doors, handing pamphlets out, answering questions, emails, social media accounts everywhere. Myself personally, I probably average between about 300 emails a day, probably about 350 to 500 messages just through Instagram alone. One of the only accounts I run, second biggest Instagram account for the People's Party of Canada. Everybody seems to think that it's the main account now, but it's not. So it's just my coordinator's account page. But it's been great. The reception across Canada has been outstanding. We saw the crowds in Winkler, Manitoba. You're looking at about 4,000 people that showed up for that. Maxime's speaking engagements, his tours across Canada are probably averaging, roughly anywhere from about 500 to 1,000 people on most regular stops. Larger stops, as we saw in Kelowna, Winkler, you're looking at about 3,000 to 4,000 people easy. No other party leader is getting the reception that we're getting, and this is amazing and astounding.
Yeah, Trudeau's always speaking to empty rooms.
Yeah.
The camera's always right at him, and there's no sound, and he makes these points, and he's speaking to empty rooms. But, I would characterize, just from what I've been observing, and that I would characterize the People's Party as less of a political party and more as a movement.
Yeah. You know what? We started out in 2019 basically trying to just get enough candidates on record, right? Get them onto the ballot. We were able to field, I believe it was about 322, I believe, in 2019, which was pretty good. First year party, 2018, we had about 58,000 members sign up. People were pretty motivated to see change. Unfortunately, the results didn't come through. Part of that was, mainstream media labeling us racists. You had Warren Kinsella and the Daisy Group, which is an ongoing lawsuit for Maxime Bernier against them for smearing us as so. We look at our candidates that we had then, they were just freedom fighters back then as well. And that's where we resonate, really, is the grassroots movement for Canada to see change. Right now, our candidates are amazing. They're everything from holistic practitioners, physiotherapists. We got a couple nurses that are running. We got firefighters. We got people that work in industry, business owners. We have Reiki practitioners. You know what I mean? It's just
a movement.
It's everything. It's
a
everything.
Movement. When you say a movement, what you're talking about is that there's something else in charge other than an agenda.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With a political party, you usually have an agenda. There's the platform, and then there's the agenda.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the platform is a way to disguise the agenda, and everybody knows that the agenda is there. Mm-hmm. Right, and then they try to find the truth by comparing the lies in the platform.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
With the People's Party, they have a platform, yes, but what you sense from it is you ex-liberals, ex-NDPers, you have gay, straight, black, white, all races, all ethnicities, and to say that. I know that Maxime has used the word conservative party and all that sort of stuff, but I don't feel that. I feel just a movement of the people asking for their country back in a way.
I don't even think they're asking for the country back. They want to see it actually get better. They want to see it change for the better. They want to see politicians step out of the lives of business, how it's governed. You look at what's changed across Canada over the course of the last probably decade and a half. is you have government imposing their will in almost every sector across the country. And it doesn't matter where you lie, whether you're in the public sector, private sector. People are fed up with this, and they want to take it back. They want to take the control back, which we want to grant them back, right? That's what's resonating with people across the country. And that's what we get the most feedback from our candidates, our supporters, people that are reaching out to us online just to inquire about the party. They're almost always influenced by what has happened to them in their personal lives. So our message is resonating with a lot more people. It's unfortunate that still the established parties have some type of stranglehold over the generational voters gap. It'd be nice to see that change, but I mean the reality is we needed media's presence to kind of push our party a little bit more, and they were never going to do that. They're censoring us outright. Trudeau wants that. Even the bills that he's proposed is literally meant to subvert us and keep us down. This movement for nationalism, which everybody's scared about, I mean, that's the identity of Canada. We're supposed to be proud. We're supposed to be a proud country. And I think we've lost touch with that. So it's about time we change. We want to bring it back. I mean, I grew up in an RCMP household. I was very proud to celebrate Canada Day every year. And in the last 2 years, you see these attacks on Canada Day about, calling us colonialists and everything else. And it's just wrong. Like, we've offered so much freedom, so much identity to people that are fleeing war-torn countries, other areas around the world, just for a better life, so that they can either be respected in who they are with their religious beliefs, their sexual identity. And it's now we're at a point where the country itself is divided, and we don't want the country divided. We don't. We want to see everybody actually united. We want to see everybody take a strong stance that we don't want to support people interfering into our daily lives anymore. We want the government to be a little bit smaller. Our public service sector has just ballooned to the tune that they basically are the largest employer in most provinces, and that's just wrong in our opinion. Like, it's about time private economy takes over a little bit, and we want to see our small businesses flourish. Right now, they don't really get it because they're all strangleheld by, environmental protection acts, labor market disputes, trade impacts.
I would correct that, false flag environmentalism.
Yeah.
That's what I would call it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? The climate. So I'm in the environmental business. I own a lighting company that retrofits people's lighting systems to LED. I own a waste management company. And I sit on different panels, worldwide panels, talking about recycling, for example, how to recycle hazardous waste and this sort of thing. And what I find very interesting is that my approach, and I'm always unique on every panel, I believe that society should start with all problems by creating solutions that are revenue generating.
Yeah.
Right? So, for example, when I started waste diversion, Ontario's lamp recycling rates were somewhere around 4%. Right? So that means 94 to 96% of all mercury-containing lamps are going to our landfill. Mercury is a neurotoxin.
Yep.
Okay, it ends up in the fish, right? And so the solution always was, let's hit people with the hammer of regulation. Regulation. And so me and a couple other industry guys went down to the Recycling Council of Ontario, and we said, look, what we need is less regulation here. And if you allow people who sell light bulbs to then recollect old light bulbs, which you don't allow right now, if you allow for that, you will see a boom in lamp recycling because we know where the lamps are.
Yep.
The government doesn't know where the lamps are. And so our recycling rates have gone astronomically through the roof ever since they changed the regulations.
Yep.
And now I think somewhere around 60 or 70% of lamps. And that waste diversion is a huge part of that. And every step along the way, we paid taxes.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah,
we didn't take any revenue from the government. We paid taxes to the government. That's what entrepreneurship is, right? It's like, can we do this first with entities that are revenue generating?
Yeah.
And the government has completely forgotten about that. That problems can be solved by entrepreneurs.
Well, I mean, we don't value ingenuity and innovation in this country. We really don't. I mean, the reality is we were literally the stranglehold. The big fixation was our tech industry. I mean, I lived in Ottawa for a long time. Canada was huge.
Sure, it was. Yeah,
that's what it was. I mean,
turned into a government hub now.
You looked at you looked at all the
Corral was there.
Correct. So Corral,
Yeah, sure.
that was basically the Ottawa Senators' land area, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Well, what happened to that? I mean, we ended up selling off all these interests. We lost a lot of our market competition to the Chinese government. The CCP came
They
in.
stole in. They stole the secrets. They
Well,
stole it.
I mean, we all know they did. They found all these bugs in all those buildings in Canada. Like, I mean, this isn't a hidden thing. They actually did. Like,
For sure.
That's why DND, when they were proposing moving out to Canada, well, lo and behold, they didn't think it was secure enough for them to actually move into those buildings, so they would have had to completely demolish it, basically from the ground up. So, but there's a lot more aspects of that. I mean, you look at what's happening. You look at our mining resources, our gold, our oil. You look at our fisheries. We're under attack everywhere on all our resources from all these foreign bodies, and our government does nothing right now to stand up for the rights of Canadians. You look at the two Michaels that are in China right now. I'm like, that's just disrespectful. What have we done? Like, I mean, we're talking about climate hypocrisy here, but we have two Canadians that are literally still in detention there. For what?
Yeah, for nothing. And I've been to China, and multiple times on business. And if you want to talk about, there's hostility by them towards us.
Of course.
Okay, I'll tell you a quick anecdote. I know it's not about me, but a friend of mine, we were just walking the streets of Shanghai, and we walked by like a military installation, and there was a bunch of young men out there, and they were in uniform, and they were staring us down. You know when you feel someone who hates you, like you can feel it in their eyes? These guys were still like when you see guys they want to fight, they wanted to fight us right there on the street. Never mind in a war. Like they hated us. So I mean, whether people need to understand that the Chinese government, not the Chinese, there's many wonderful Chinese Canadians.
Of course.
But the Chinese, and they know this the best. The Chinese government and their philosophy hates the West.
Mm-hmm.
And they hate America. Like there's absolutely no question about it. But so not to go down the big China rabbit hole, because we could probably talk about China for a long time. I want to talk to you a little bit about loving Canada. And what I sense from the PPC, I interviewed Rene DeVries, who's the candidate for Markham Stouffville, and then many of the people in the party, is that there's a love for Canada as a nation within the party. And when I was watching the local debate, I saw 4 immigrants on the panel. Okay, one born Canadian, so 4 immigrants and one born Canadian. 2 of them were Southeast Asians, and in the introduction, they talked about how wonderfully successful they've been since they came to Canada. And one was a lawyer, the other was, I think he was in publicity or something, and they're saying how great they had done since they came to Canada. And then they subsequently went ahead to call Canada a systemically racist nation.
Yeah.
And I mean, can people not see the irony in this?
No. Well, you know what, more people are. The problem is it just takes time, right? I mean, one thing that we know about Canadians is we accept everyone. We're welcoming in more people than ever. And I mean, that's part of the issue for our housing issues is one. But Canadians are, infinitely Canadian. We want to see the Canadian flag being flown high and proud. The fact that it's been at half-mast for like a month and a half, 2 months now, like to me, it's disrespectful. Our soldiers didn't die with these world wars to protect our interests in a democratic virtue. To see our flag being flown at half-mast all the time, I mean, we understand why Justin Trudeau is, virtue signaling to do everything they can to literally promote that, but the fact is that most Canadians want to see a strong nation that stands up for their values, that stands up for their morals, that stands up for their integrity, that wants to see us thrive as a nation, that pushes businesses to be stronger, better, faster, more innovative. And that's where we're coming from. The People's Party supporters, they want to see Canada be the leader. We don't want to follow, we want to lead. And that's one big thing that the other parties don't really get. I mean, they want to offer handout programs. They want to offer cash incentives, vote buying schemes. We don't. We're relying on Canadians that just want to be Canadian. We want them to actually lead the pack. We want them to be part of the process going forward. And I think that's why we're starting to resonate, because our message on COVID, we want to actually bring in, statistical analysis, data analysis. We don't want to censor anybody. We want to have panel interviews. We want to have physicians offer their 2 cents from both sides of the spectrum, so we can get down to what the nitty gritty is, see what's happening. And unfortunately, the other parties don't. They just want to placate one narrative when we know the narrative has been completely just blown out of the water over what you're seeing in Israel, what you're seeing in other countries. Denmark proclaiming that they're literally COVID-free. They're not going to bother imposing anything. Now you're seeing countries like Sweden who are actually done it right now. Like, you're looking at their statistics over other countries, they're leading the way. So, and when somebody says, well, look at this, look at that, look at the other thing, I can counter effect that any day.
It doesn't. But here would be my point to that. Okay, and I understand the obsessive nature of the numbers and the data, but data is also a tyranny too. Okay, and I'm going to say something here. Like, the average Canadian, okay, shouldn't have to care if ICU beds are close to being full or not. It's not their problem. You understand what I mean? Like, when you're saying, oh, you know what, we've mismanaged the hospital system, or we don't have enough. Like the idea that they're pushing out these statistics at people and forcing people to think about how many ICU beds are in capacity today, what are the case numbers today, and how many people have COVID in Ontario. They could easily invert those numbers, and it would look ridiculous. Like 0.00001% of all Canadians have COVID-19 today. It's 674 people, or whatever these numbers that they put. There's a tyranny to that. That is causing people to obsess, and what that's called in psychology is a cascade effect.
Yeah.
So when you have a confirmation bias and you create the group effect, you can create a cascade effect where every single thing has to be about COVID-19. Right? And it's not like the purpose of Ontario is not to battle COVID-19. Okay? Like, there's lots of other problems that may be worse. So, but when you think about these things, in a real pandemic, if there was a real pandemic or a real war, true leaders would be trying to calm people down.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I agree.
Because there isn't a real pandemic. And what I mean, I'm not saying there's no COVID-19. I'm not saying people haven't died from COVID-19. What I'm saying is that people are not visibly seeing death and destruction in front of their eyes. So if you had a real pandemic like the Spanish flu, people would self-isolate because they were scared. But in this pandemic, they self-isolated because politicians are forcing them, but also because they've created hysteria around it.
Oh, of course. Of course. Hysteria is everywhere now. It's everything from going to the grocery store, pumping gas, people walking their dogs, riding a bike. I mean, people are on trails. You see them downtown Toronto. I live in Barrie. I'm seeing them all the time everywhere. And they got a mask on and you're outside. And I'm like, where's your logic? I mean, there's not a single piece of data that supports.
No, they're not making a logical decision.
Oh no, I know.
You're talking people. Like, you're talking about people that are suffering from the group effect.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. Like, they're wearing a badge.
Yeah.
Like, what they're doing is virtue signaling to others that I am on Team COVID or whatever. No. And it's sad. I feel like I'm not angry with them or anything. I just feel so sad for them that think about this for a second. You're going to restrict your supply of oxygen for your health?
Yeah. Yeah, when every data says that that's wrong. I mean, you look at...
No, never mind that doesn't make any sense on first principles.
It still does, though, in one sense. I mean, from myself personally...
Outside on a beautiful day,
yeah.
Wearing a mask makes sense? Come on.
No. I don't mean that it makes sense that they're wearing a mask outside. I mean, it doesn't make sense in the sense that they're virtue signaling this hypocrisy, that they haven't done any research of their own. They haven't looked at any data. But they shouldn't
have to do any research. That's my point.
Well, this is, like you said, the media and all of that narrative that they've fed to us with their fear mongering. I like to call it fear porn, actually.
That's a good word for it.
I like to use that. So the reality is they like to take that COVID fear porn and feed it to you daily. You look at the CP24 here in Toronto and that ticker going all the time. It's just nothing but fear porn, fear porn, fear porn. And it's like, the reality is the hospitals are no worse They're no worse than they were. If you were to look at data and stories from 2019, 2018, the same amount of fear and hysteria in our healthcare system was there. Oh, the hospitals are overrun. There's a nurses shortage. There's everything else. And now you're actually seeing what's going to cause a nurses shortage by these mandates.
Yes.
I mean, we like to hear these politicians speak about, well, the nurses weren't at these rallies. That's not true. They were everywhere. There's plenty of videos online, but they don't want to go search it because it doesn't suit their narrative.
That's because they're stuck in a confirmation bias.
Correct. So
right? What you're seeing is sort of the formation of a national cult of sanitary, a national sanitary cult.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not kidding you. You're seeing the formation of it.
Yeah.
Like, and then you have Trudeau, who, you ever watched that show on Netflix, How to Become a Tyrant or How to Become a Dictator?
Yeah, I did actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you watch that, this is what he needs is a scapegoat group. Like, in order for him in order for them to fully, manifest their tyranny, they need an outgroup, and they're creating the outgroup. It's unbelievable, actually.
Yeah.
How textbook what they're doing is. The people can't see it, because they shouldn't have to. In a free society, people shouldn't have to be worrying about things that are not. If you're an engineer, you should be worried about your engineering, and then you should go home to your family and play a game of hockey and have a cup of coffee at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be. Your life shouldn't go, what are the COVID numbers today? What? Oh, are they going to lock us down again? And this sort of stuff. The all these things, I believe, and I don't want to be a tin hat conspiracy here, but there's these are features of something else that I think is happening maybe in society.
Well, I don't think you need to have a tin foil hat to understand that this is globalism 101. This is Agenda 2030 on full display. This was all signed into by Harper, by the way, the CPC. This wasn't done by Trudeau. This is a long time coming in the making. You look at Paris Climate Accord, the treaty there to literally impose carbon taxation on people. This wasn't imposed by scientists. This was done by the World Economic Forum. But people don't want to wake up. They don't quite understand where it's coming from. They don't understand the data. They don't want to look at it. But the party here and the People's Party Canada, we do. And we do want to see it actually being relayed to Canadians properly. And that's part of the issue of why people are so fearful of us, because we are willing to take the hard stances. We're willing to have the hard debates and dialogue that other politicians and parties don't want to do. For example, we don't whip our candidates. Even if they get into office, we're not going to tell them that they have to toe a party line. If their constituents are telling them, hey, listen, the 80% of our constituents are saying this policy negatively affects us. Okay, well, the party will allow you to vote to represent your constituency. Our goal is to actually represent the people in
So
ridings.
you actually believe in parliamentary democracy.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like it's absolutely absurd. I mean, what you want in Newfoundland is very different than what you're going to find in BC or in the south of Ontario or that of Northwest Territories or Nunavut. I mean, you look at the policies that are being implemented now. These are all cash grab policies. They're handing them out to their donors. This is part of the biggest problem we have in Canada. There's a ton of corruption. I mean, here in Ontario, we were approached by autism founders that implement the programs here in the province of Ontario, and there's so much cash being wasted and handed out to programs that don't actually understand the treatment models. And this is something that we've been kind of working on behind the scenes to kind of talk about a little bit of the corruption, but I won't get into too much detail on that. But
well, we don't want to have any problems by naming names. Let's put it that way.
I'm not doing that. Yeah. But
So I always said climate hysteria, but you said something else. Climate earlier in the show. You used a climate something like I loved it, but I forgot what it was. Not hysteria, but you said something else. I want to talk about that for a second, though.
Climate hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy. That was it. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
There you go. So, for example, like you hear people talking about climate change or whatever. Now, I've made real impacts in the world.
Yep.
Okay, with my businesses. Okay,
Absolutely.
like my belief is the most important thing we should be doing is managing our hazardous waste correctly, so it doesn't go into our water. That should be number one priority. Mm-hmm. Okay, but anyway, that's it. That's me talking about my business. Go to waste-diversion.ca, by the way. So for example, every single home in Ontario, I'm not talking about maybe 99.98 or something like that, is heated with fuel oil or natural gas or electricity.
That's right. I mean, but that's what people don't get. They don't understand that to convert ourselves off of natural gas or oil or energy to power our homes and heat our homes, power our vehicles, we're not at a sustainable level that we can just implement the Green New Deal yet. It's just not possible yet. I mean, you look at the reports that came out of the oil industry, the people who know what it is for consumption and demand. I mean, these people know their market. If they think that oil is still going to be around for 50 plus years and it's still going to be a benefit to everybody and it's still going to be the number one source, it is. And part of our platform is looking at oil as being literally the major commodity in Canada. We have the cleanest oil. We have the cleanest way of reaching that renewable energy that's coming out of there and treating it to market. We're buying Saudi Arabian oil, Venezuelan oil.
Come on, man.
Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, these
funding
countries...
terrible regimes in Venezuela. It's ridiculous. Well, but here, I want to tell you, I want to look at the camera and tell all you people, if you're listening to this, okay, Canada is not a place to live without natural gas.
No.
You can't live here right now. Like, the idea that when these people are telling you that they don't have any plan of how to do this and they don't have any clue of what it would take. I mean, there's no replacement for natural gas and heating up. But you know what you never hear from the Uni Party? Okay, so Ontario and Quebec are two of the cleanest electricity jurisdictions in the world. All you ever hear about is Alberta, right? But meanwhile, Bavaria, all these clean Germany, 500 times more carbon-intensive electricity in Germany than in Ontario or Quebec and Bavaria. 500 times, not 50, not 500 times, right? Ontario is awash in clean nuclear energy and hydro energy. Quebec is awash in clean electricity. If Doug Ford knew what he was doing, or Justin Trudeau knew what they were doing, they'd be shouting that from the rooftops.
Yep.
We've already done the electricity in Ontario and Quebec. We're already there. How come you never hear about that? No message of hope, only fear.
Well, I mean, you're not going to hear about it because they've all bought into it. Somehow behind the scenes, all these leaders across provinces, across Canada, elected officials, somehow the parties and the established parties are all virtue signaling and pandering to everyone, and that's what's happening. You have this, globalist intention to come and take over our sovereignty, and they're buying off these politicians with programs. One thing that I'll throw out here, I mean, this is a good solid name drop, but look at Ford and his company here, his private company. Look at his private wealth, how much that went up during COVID. All those signs you see on the floor in all these grocery stores, gas stations everywhere. Guess what company made that? His. He made millions of dollars off of this.
So that company's called Beep Label.
It's unbelievable. Like, I mean, but nobody wants to talk about this. Like, his net worth is into what, 10 million now, I think. Like, it's absolutely
and
absurd.
You know what was funny? Just speculation, pure speculation here.
Of course.
Okay. It's funny that his finance minister just somehow magically went to St. Bart's. Yeah. Banking Island. What you doing down there, bud? Oh, and Doug knew he was going. Didn't say anything. And then the guy is literally putting on a sweater while he's in St. Bart's doing his Zoom calls. He's putting out false Twitter. So there's stage tweets that people know, okay, this is a quote that I did or something. And then there's the kind of tweets where I'm on my porch and I'm eating pancakes. And so he's intentionally releasing stage tweets to make them think he's still in Ontario, when really he's in. What is the finance minister of Ontario doing? Secretly hiding a trip? I don't know, man. Just speculation.
I mean, I won't get into provincial politics, except
I know, but I'm just saying the whole narrative is like, if you look at the money, okay, if you follow the money on this thing, it gets even more interesting along those lines. But let's get back to the People's Party, because we could probably go conspiracy theory all day on COVID-19. So let's talk a little bit a controversial one, which is immigration. Now, I always say to people, like, I want to know what we're talking about first. Are we talking about legal immigrants, illegal immigrants, or refugees? Yeah. Right? Because those are three different things we're talking about there. Mm-hmm. Canada has a wonderful record with refugees, the Syrians, the Vietnamese boat people, the Somalians, and people from Hong Kong, and then, of course, the Tanzanians, the people that came out of Africa. Very wonderful record. Okay. Yeah. I think you guys believe that the legal immigration policy is largely the envy of the world. It's a good policy. right? When you're selecting, people of skills that you need in various areas and bringing them to the country. What we're talking about with the People's Party is reducing the volume of legal immigrants and then also reducing how many dependents they can bring with them. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. I mean, the reality is we just want the proper immigrants here in Canada. We want the ones that are going through the legal process to get here. We don't want people crossing through Roxham Road, as an example.
That would be an illegal immigration.
That would be an illegal
right? So
immigration,
you have to separate the three things, otherwise people don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? So if you talk about legal immigration, but do you guys want to reduce the overall levels, right?
We do. We want to get more into the business class, the economic.
No, but in terms
visitors.
of total people coming, is it less?
Yeah. So
that I think people need to know that. They don't want to reform immigration. They largely want to keep the system the same, the people's.
Correct,
but you want to reduce the volume for a while.
Yeah, I mean, we've hit a point now where our supply versus demand in many sectors is now heavily outweighed, right? So the employment sector is rising, unemployment, I mean, you're looking at it, in some areas of the country, you're looking at 9-10%. So we want to see that come down. How do you do that? Well, you got to have more jobs than demand.
Sure.
So you got to have people that are available to work. And that's not to say that our immigrants that come to Canada aren't, fruitful labors of our contributing to our economy or anything, because they are. They're greatly contributing. But they would also say that the economic return for where they're coming at as their education class. I mean, if you're a doctor in Pakistan and then now you're coming to Canada, you're driving a cab. And we don't want to see that. We don't want to see that. We want to see that these, economic investors and these educated professionals from other countries who went through the same model, by the way, in Pakistan and India, they go through the same, educational model in Canada. So really their skills should be more transferable.
The system should be in place to transfer their skills quicker. I'll give you an example. So I own an electrical contracting company here, and from 2005 to I think about 13, I participated in an Ontario government program called Skills for Change.
Yep.
And this is a wonderful program. What they did was they connected immigrants who were skilled tradesmen of different kinds with contractors who needed skilled tradesmen. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so what happened was about 15 electricians, I hired them. They did not have a license, and they were on an accelerated program to get their license. So within a year and a half, based on our approval as a contractor, they were able to receive their 309A, which is an electrician's license. Okay. And so those programs were very well done. And so it allowed those people to go from driving an Uber or whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with driving an Uber. But that's not what an electrician wants to do.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? Like an electrician from, Colombia or Pakistan doesn't want to come to Canada to drive an Uber. That's not the Canadian dream. Okay. And so these programs allowed these people to get their skills. Many of them own electrical contracting companies themselves now, and they came through here. They worked for me for 5 years or whatever, and now they're successful. And that's the dream, brother. Mm-hmm. And so I think the immigration, we have to know what we're going to do with the people that come here and offer them a chance at the dream, not a chance at just being in Canada. And I think a lot of the Liberals and all they have this idea that if they just let them in, that's great. Well, I don't think it works well that way.
Well, I mean, if you look at who's sponsoring a lot of this, where the funding once again goes back to, you see the Tides Foundation, Open Society, these are all, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, George Soros. These are all financial backers of what's happening in the Democrat policies in the U.S. You're seeing what's happening. Trump instituted one of the best programs where applicants would have had to apply in Mexico. It's called the Stay in Mexico program. They would have had to apply there to then gain entry into the U.S. under their refugee program. It was amazing. What it did was free up the border. It freed up the CBP officers. It allowed for proper vetting and everything else. Within, 2 months after Biden took over office, you're looking at 1.5 million people cross the border now. Like, it's absolutely it's ridiculous what's happening. They didn't go through any proper vetting for COVID-19 either. So the reality is it just overwhelmed them. Now they have legal challenges, and then the legal challenges actually won for Trump. But back to Canada, what happens with all these migrants? They flow right through to the north. They come right up to Canada looking for the advantages and handouts here as well. We're seeing them cross in, and they shouldn't be. Like if they're going through the U.S., I mean, we had the Safe Third Nation Agreement, which I mean I could expand on, but really I got a little bit of a conflict of interest on going into immigration too deep.
You're pretty deep right now, brother.
I mean, I could get in deeper, but I won't because my points of view on it would probably get me in trouble at work. But that being said, we're seeing loopholes that are everywhere. I think our government wants to allow more people to come in, and it's not that the People's Party of Canada doesn't want to allow people to come in. That's not the case at all. I mean, we value our immigration system.
There's many immigrants in the People's Party.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, they're running as candidates now.
Sure.
Like, I mean, this is the reality, but they see the problems of it as well.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't want people to come into Canada and then segregate themselves into what they call tribalism, areas, right? I mean, we see that happening in Brampton, we see that in Vaughan Woodbridge, we see that in Vancouver, and then the Canadian identity kind of, I'm going to call it just kind of disappears. It's not adopted. And then, that'll bring me to the Multiculturalism Act, where we're now funding these programs for these immigration sectors to allow for them to still maintain their way of life, even though in many of them it's against what our way of life is. One thing being, you look at we treat everybody fairly here with respect, and it's not the same in every country. It's really not. I mean, you see what's happening around the world with, even just recently in the Taliban. I mean, they just once again took over their country, and already they're forcing women out of office. I'm like, we don't want that. We don't want that here, and most Canadians don't, but they're scared to speak up, and that's where the People's Party comes in, because we're willing to have these tough conversations. We're willing to put it out on the line. We'll engage people with their criteria, their credentials, their professionalism to actually have these tough conversations and showcase what it is that we're actually doing. You look at gender policies and climate hypocrisy. Again, we're funding road production in Iraq. I mean, we're talking about one of the wealthiest countries on the planet. Why are we giving them any of our money in foreign aid? I mean, it's ridiculous.
I don't understand foreign aid at all. I don't understand it. And when I say I don't understand it, I mean, I don't know why it exists. You look at, why are we handing cash to dictators? Like, that's basically a lot of what it is it's, or giving money to institutions that we have no scrutiny over. It's not like Canada can go in and audit these programs post facto. Foreign aid is a very dark hole, I think. No, it really is. I mean, if people knew, we're doing our place in the world, we have $76 million to give away to who?
Yeah. Well, the problem is there's no checks and balances.
You can't have them because the money's no longer in your sovereign nation state.
Exactly. I mean, we hand them out to dictatorship countries, countries that have different values than us, and there's no way to oversee what that spending is being, incorporated for their citizenship about either. So here in Canada, we just, we feel good. It's a heartstring policy, right? So it's like, oh, okay, we gave all this money to help, the LGBTQ community in the Middle East. Did it actually get used for that?
Who knows?
That's the thing. Nobody knows. Right. Yeah, and you look at McKenna. She has no idea what half of the money was spent on. I mean, out of her own office, we're talking about 1,500 people that receive money, and she will not disclose it.
What they're doing is they're giving money to people.
Correct.
That's all it is. They're just giving people money.
They're giving your money to people.
Yeah, exactly. They're giving the taxpayers.
Actually, sorry, they're giving printed money that we didn't have.
Sure, yeah,
to people. That's even worse.
No, actually,
right?
They're borrowing the money and giving it to them. That's a better way to put it. They're borrowing the money so that our future generations can pay it off by 2050 or something like that.
They'll never pay it off. I mean, especially
I disagree with that. I think you can have a turnaround here. I don't think
we could.
Yeah, Canada could, yes.
We could. The People's Party could, because we're willing to make hard stances and actually adopt policies that would benefit our future. That's the difference. Other parties are just going to pander. I mean, you look at what happened with the Conservatives right now, and I'll just point out to one. You're looking at, they want to pay 50% of the salary for students. Okay? let's look at this impact here. 50% of the salary to students, okay, is for 6 months. Let's just say 6 months for an employer to hire a student. Okay. Where's that money going to come from? We don't have it. We don't have it currently. So you're going to have to borrow that money.
I'd wonder, too, if the government agencies can participate in that program. See, that's where it gets really dark.
It's even darker because now if you introduce vaccine passports and mandates, you're now limiting certain people who can work and who can't.
We're going to get to vax passports.
I know. So then you have businesses that are correlating these two things. Then you have, where's the longevity of this program at the end of 6 months? Are you going to extend it? We know they're probably gonna because whatever happens in this election will probably be a minority government in the first place, and what we're gonna see for the next 2 years at least is more cash schemes. How to figure out how to maintain.
Right, like I said, solutions to problems not being considered as revenue generating first.
That's right. Yeah.
Right, like we don't need to always, Okay, so I'm going to be going on a panel next month to talk about light bulb recycling.
Sure.
Okay. Ontario, the way it works is you can become a large volume handler. If you sell light bulbs, you can recollect light bulbs. Okay. And then you can gather them together and then send them out to a lamp recycling station, a lamp recycling company. Now, if you do that truckload by truckload, you get a much lower price than you do if you send them a skid.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can make money on it. Okay. I even have more ideas I could tell to make it totally blow up without ever spending $1 of the government's money. The problem with it is the other countries that I'm going to be debating, all of their programs are paid for out of taxpayer money. So they have in the UK, they have a company called Ricolite, which is funded by industry. It's called what's it called? There's a name for these. They give these acronyms all the time. Extended Producer Responsibility Program, EPR, which means that the people that make the product are then paying for the disposal. So they give money to the government. The government adds a little bit, and they get a sole source person to take that money and then try to go collect the lamps. Okay, this is ass backwards, bro.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're creating a government entity to now go to distribution and tell them that you're the ones, we'll come pick up from you. Now, how effective do you think this is? We have 24-hour service. It takes them 6 weeks to get to somewhere. You understand what I mean? They have their own trucks. They have their own union drivers. They have all. It's impossible to do. So, the government needs to stop trying to fix all the problems and allow people identify problems and then create environments where people can start businesses that generate revenue, which then put money in the pot. I mean, I've been screaming this from the rooftops, but people think I'm crazy. I think that we need to consider always revenue generation first. And I can't say that enough, Daniel. But anyway.
Well, listen, we know capitalism is the best system on the planet.
Well, we don't have a capitalist system.
Well, you're right.
Let's define that first, okay?
All right, sure.
So I'm not going to define capitalism, but I'm going to say how it works. Okay?
Go ahead.
So in a capitalist society, all the government does is enforce private property rights. That's it. If you're 100% capitalist, you enforce private property rights. That's all the government does, right? What we have is a socialism with capitalism.
Yep.
Right? And so the difference between the People's Party, the Conservative Party, the NDP is how much do we take of the capital and redistribute?
Yeah.
That's all it is. Right? Like how much
sliding scale.
Yeah, it's a scale. So the PPC may be here, the Conservatives may be here, the Liberals may be here, the NDP may be here. Right? To say that they're communist means that you're getting rid of both socialism and capitalism, and the government takes over the private property rights.
Yep.
Right? That's the difference between the. Do you agree on that?
Yeah, for the most part.
For the most part, okay. A communist system would say no more private property.
Well, I mean, they don't believe in any ownership rights.
That's right.
I mean,
right. So we don't have communism, but we have a sliding scale between socialism and capitalism here in Canada, right?
Yeah, our socialism programs are just expanding year over year, and this is the biggest problem that we have: is that how do we curb
That's the
that
biggest
in?
one.
Well, that's one of them. So,
okay.
I mean, sorry, there's many here.
There's many, yes.
But I mean, that's one big issue which is why the People's Party are where we are, right? So we're seeing what's happening. We want to have private ownership rights being instituted and abided by.
Mm-hmm.
Your homes, I mean, we pay, look at a pool permit as an example, as a small example. You know, you buy a $5,000, $10,000 pool to have it put into your property. You own the land, you purchased it. Should be your land. You should do whatever you want on there. You have home insurance. If there's an issue with your pool and it breaks a fence or it damages property, you have insurance.
Yeah.
Why am I paying a city $300 for a pool permit?
Or to cut down a tree.
Like what
or to cut down a tree.
Nonsense. It's my tree. I bought that land. I bought my yard. It's my yard. It's my private ownership rights. And this is, we actually have one candidate who was a last-minute addition. His name is Joseph Westover. Great candidate here in Mississauga. He actually lives in Barrie. He's his supporter beforehand, but he kind of stepped up to the plate last minute. He's amazing to talk to about ownership rights, and he just blows my mind every time he comes out with it. I mean, but we have lots of candidates like that, and we're speaking about ownership rights across the whole country. A lot of the other parties won't even touch that. And you looking at what's happening with the Liberals, they want to actually tax you on your asset of your home that you've built. You've increased the asset value of your home.
Now, Justin Trudeau's recently rolled that back and said that's not going to happen.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
but I mean, that would be suicide for him if he announced that during an election. Okay, let's talk about.
But he already had a candidate put it out there. It's literally everywhere.
So let's talk about I wrote down the word divided earlier. Okay. So you have Justin Trudeau talking about those people.
Oh yeah.
Making very, very aggressive statements, and they, look, I don't love Donald Trump. I don't hate Donald Trump. I don't live in that country, but there's an accusation that he incited violence on January 6th, okay? Which, I don't want to get into that debate about that. But Trudeau is there's a creeping incitement here towards.
It's not creeping; it's there.
Yeah.
He's pushing people against each other. He's citing lies and omissions. He's using that to rile up his narrative to push, his divided and conquer type of programs that he wants. I mean, you look at doctors and nurses, they're standing up for themselves now. I mean, this isn't a fallacy. The media might tell you that they're not there, but they're more than there. And it's not a fringe group. There's a lot of them. I mean, if you look at the University Health Network here in Toronto, they're expecting, 30% of their staff to be potentially fired and or laid off due to these mandates. That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. Yep. I mean, already in a healthcare system that has not enough beds. Yeah, not enough coverage, not enough funding that is generated through any private
and let's just make the point, first of all, these people have been battling COVID for 18 months without a vaccine.
Oh, they didn't.
Like, there's no, like the idea that this is a sensible solution or whatever. It's not. It makes no sense at all.
But there's not a world leader. I mean, you look around.
Maxime is the greatest world leader in the world right now. I'm not kidding you.
Well, I would say that he is too.
There's nobody that compares to what Maxime Bernier is doing in Canada. Nobody.
So I'm not like
name one.
Listen, I think the Polish government's doing a great job.
Okay, so you want to go Viktor Orban or in Hungary? I mean, what a guy has been given a really bad rap by the globalist crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ever watch, you've heard a lot about Viktor Orban. He's such a horrible guy and all that. Watch an interview with Viktor Orban. You're going to change your mind after about 10 minutes.
The guy's amazing.
The guy's amazing, and I'm trying to remember the guy's name in Poland. My father-in-law's Polish. I can't remember his name. He's got one of those long Polish names. Yeah. But anyway, again, all they're saying, all those countries are saying is that Hungary exists to protect and promote the Hungarian people, the Hungarian language, and Hungarian culture. That's why we exist as a government. That's our only reason to exist.
Yep.
And we don't exist to help out other countries, to help out the European Union or anything else. We exist to protect the Hungarian people, their language, and their culture. That's our reason, or a raison d'etre. There you go. It's our raison d'etre. Okay? So otherwise, we don't do anything else. This idea that Canada should not be negotiating with Hungary with a Canada First policy, like, why not? That's how Quebec negotiates everything.
That's right. I mean, you look at François Legault and the way that he's imposed his will on the people there. It has nothing to do with what the desire for all of Quebec is. It's his desire, and that's not supported by the majority of Quebecers, and it will be reflective in the next election. You look at what's happening here in Ontario. Doug Ford came in with a majority. And everybody thought he was going to be this conservative voice that was going to help clean up Ontario. But has he done that? No. All he's done is literally put us into more issues. I mean, you look at Roman Baber, you look at MPP Nichols, you look at Belinda Carolios, who, you know, I love Belinda and Jim Carolios.
Yeah, sure.
They're freedom
Jim's been on the
fighters.
podcast.
Jim's amazing.
He's been on this podcast, by the way.
Great. They're
a long time ago, but yeah.
They're supporters of the party, you know, and I can clearly say that. They've posted articles. We support them and what they're doing, and the austerity measures that Belinda was kicked out of caucus right from the start, too. Like, she was on it right from the start. So when people hear that name, they should understand that she's got a backbone. Yeah. And, you know, the New Blue Party in Ontario is actually fighting back against the austerity measures. They're a new party, too. And this is where Canada's coming from. So you're talking about divide. Well, they're dividing these parties internally to literally separate them into what we're actually wanting now. And you're seeing it across Canada. And it's good. When everybody says, oh, well, you know, it's conservative, liberal, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, what's getting accomplished? Nothing. We're not doing anything. We just keep making it worse. More parties means more sense of democracy, more debate, more platforms, more ideas to bounce.
It can also lead to if you look at some like countries like Belgium, for example, or the Netherlands. These countries have so many political parties that they can never form a government. That's another problem. But you know, but the People's Party to me is what I see as a grassroots movement. It's a movement rather than a political party. Yeah. And what's happening is, and the idea of the left and right, that is very anachronistic. You know, like this. You know, you have the left, and you know, that means if you're on the left, you believe in gay rights, abortion, euthanasia, unionization, and more social programs. And if you're on the right, you're a racist. You you know, you believe in lower taxes. You're pro-life. You're this. Like there's no like this spectral line that we have is very silly actually to describe things. And what I see in the People's Party is almost like okay, let's throw that out and let's do some sensible stuff with the primary focus being individual privacy for most people.
Yeah. And I mean, this is where it all kind of started from. It stemmed from this, and it's only building more, right? So people are understanding a lot more where we're coming from, where we're trying to get to. And privacy matters is one of the biggest factors right now. And it, like you said, it is the biggest factor in this election now. You're looking at charter rights, infringement, constitutionality.
Everything they're doing is illegal.
But where's our legal system?
I don't know.
Like, where are they? Where are these judges? I mean, I was married to a lawyer for, you know, a long time. We were together for 16 years. She won all these awards at Osgoode Hall Law School. You know, she doesn't work in that domain, but in employment sector. But where are these people? Where are they?
Yeah.
You know, what's happening with them? Like, what happened to your morals, your values, your ethics? Like, where are you? Because it's time that you guys come out of the blue. It's time that you wake up. You see what happens. You learned about all this. You understand the concepts of law and its imposition on people. But you're hiding behind the window of a narrative to try to supplant what your bias is. And it's wrong. Because you took an oath of service to people and to protect the criminal code, to protect the Highway Traffic Act, whatever the case is.
Sure.
If you're a physician, your oath is to the people. And when they
don't serve the OMA.
Correct. Like, I became a paramedic. I'm an AMCA certified paramedic in the province of Ontario. I was also 7 years in the CF as a medic as well. I'm like, I took an oath to protect my patients. And one thing that I recognize is that this narrative does not suit what's happening now. It's not correct. It's not actually applying science-based, peer-reviewed studies. That's the issue. And what I want to see is transparent dialogue. What the party wants to see is a debate. We want to see these people actually be brought forward. Let's see what you have to say. Let's remove the politicians out of that conversation and hammer it out.
Well, you know, there was a roundtable that invited debate with Doug Ford's COVID team, and they refused it.
Of course.
Of course they did, because they can't debate it.
Of course, they don't have anything.
They don't. They can't debate what they're doing. You know, if masks and lockdowns worked and all this sort of stuff, we would be out of this already. We didn't lock down hard enough.
Yeah, we all know the masks don't work. The FDA said they didn't work. It's on the box. If you read the box, it's on the box. Like,
never mind. They don't work. I often on my other shows, I do other politics. I say, let's turn the axiomatic presupposition around. Have we studied if these make people sick?
Yeah.
Does anybody ask that question? Can government of Canada put out a little quiet warning that you shouldn't wear the blue masks because they have particulate matter? Does anybody know that? No, you shouldn't wear those blue masks. Why? Because all day long, because they have these little particles on them or something like that. That should be being screened from the rooftops. The other thing is that I believe that masks make people sick. I think, how many times that, people are, oh, shoot, I forgot my mask for my kid. Oh, here's one under the seat of the car. Here you go, kid.
100%.
Put this on.
Full your snot. And
they're not studying. They're not going out into the real world.
No.
And studying, people. They're looking at statistics of COVID and massaging them and saying, well, no, we did the masks and now we're okay now or whatever. No, if you actually grabbed the mask someone was wearing on their face and took it off and swabbed it, you'd find all manner of nastiness on that thing.
Well, listen, we'll go even further here. So occupational mask fit testers, this is their job. They're the experts in masking, okay? So not a physician. They're not an occupational expert in that. They're not. They just get told this is the mask you wear under these criteria, this is the mask you wear under these criteria. An occupational mask fitter is the only one that is certified to say what is actually approved for that type of environment. And not one of them supports this nonsense. They go on trial all the time. They go to these school board meetings all the time. There's plenty of videos online. You can go look them up. They literally stand there, but they're censored all the time. But the reality is you see them and they put these little cords, these little tubes in through their mask while they're talking. And all of a sudden, their meter, which recognizes the oxygen levels, depletes. And all of a sudden, it starts warning them.
Sure.
Well, the reason that's happening is because the mask is actually inhibiting the flow to your body. It's actually inhibiting your health care. It's inhibiting your breathing. It's inhibiting your oxygen.
Like I said, the idea that masks are healthy is crazy.
It's absolutely absurd. It's just a way of compliance, like you said earlier, the people biking and jogging and stuff. It's a virtue signaling policy. That's what it is.
I think it might be worse.
I don't know.
I think it might be a symbol of something darker. And one of the things that I see, did you see that guy in BC that came out and said all the nastiness with the blonde Hitler haircut? His haircut. You didn't see him?
No.
And he said he's getting fed up with we're losing our patience. It's time for the vaccinated to are losing their patience with the unvaccinated, and we're not sure how long we're going to be able to. That guy with the blonde hair.
Yeah, I saw that numpty. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty. I show that to my wife, and she's pretty scared of that. So this idea that there's a darker shadow motivation going on here. There's something going on that's, remember it's like that Stanford experiment where they put the prison guards in charge. They had to shut the whole thing down because they went crazy. There's something there. They've touched some dark emotion somehow with this, and people are indulging themselves in some dark fantasies. You see it from Justin Trudeau's doing it himself, talking about those people. And Biden said the other day that again he said this, that we're losing patience. What does that mean? What does that mean? What happens when you're patient? What happened to tolerance?
Well, okay. Once again, I'm going to go on that sliding scale that you just mentioned.
Sure.
The left is not tolerant anymore.
No, they're totally
We're
intolerant.
seeing that.
Yeah.
I mean, when you say fascism, who is fascism coming from? The left.
Fascism is National Socialism.
It's literally telling you if you don't follow what I want, then you're wrong and I'm right, and this is what it is.
Sure.
But it's not. We don't want that. The People's Party is saying we want to have open dialogue. We want to have we want to invite you in to present your side of the story. We'll present another side of the story, or whatever the case is with these experts combined. That's not fascism. That's called dialogue, debate.
Parliamentary democracy.
Correct. I'm like, but when you're told what to think and you're told how to think and how to maneuver and how to live your life and how to put your kids in school, that is not democracy. That is fascism. That is the country, the government imposing their will on what you are to think.
And it's arbitrary too. That's the thing about it.
Of course it is. But
it's arbitrary.
And then we go back to the legal team. Where are they?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, Rocco Galati, okay.
Thank God for him.
Thank God for Rocco. God bless Rocco Galati, man.
100%.
Jesus. I mean, he's out there, and then you have that guy in Germany, Rainer Fulmicht, who's
Crimes against humanity.
I mean, you know what? You look at this now; it's starting to get there, bud.
Oh, it's already there.
Yeah,
I mean, he wouldn't have been able to present that case had his evidence not been reviewed enough.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
and that's what happens in The Hague, right? They have to present the evidence in order to get it formalized. So, I mean, this man is going to be proceeding with this case. So,
Yeah.
hey, listen, he's got a lot. And I mean, the German review on COVID-19 already is pretty substantial. So good on Reimer Fulmich.
There's an election in Germany right now, and if you read any of the mainstream media, you won't know at all what's actually going on in Germany. There's a federal election happening right now, just like there is in Canada. What are the chances for the People's Party in this thing? What are you guys going to be able to pull out of this?
This is a tough question because if you look at polling numbers, we're everywhere. I mean, in some polls, which we don't obviously believe in, I mean, we're as low as 4 or 5% now, which is still 2-3 times higher than what we were prior to the election in these ones. But in some areas, we're looking at 12, 13, 14%.
I saw almost 20% in Alberta.
Well, that's voter anticipation, right? So voter anticipation rates are a little bit different in the sense that polling itself for what the expected voter turnout is versus voter anticipation rate, which would consider our platform. Alberta, Saskatchewan definitely leading the way. You look at Ontario, we're really up there now. We're hitting 11, 12%, which is great for us. Do we anticipate forming government? Probably not, right? I mean, like, we're just being honest here. I mean, 3 years.
You know what?
But you never know.
I don't think it's impossible.
You never know.
You don't know what happens in that secret box in that voting booth.
That's right. We have no idea.
I read another article that might interest you. That I wish I could find it. It's been a couple of years now, but it was back in the 2016 election when the polls were so off between Clinton and Trump.
Oh yeah.
And they tried to figure out what the heck happened. Right? And so what they learned was that, again, we're going to use that sliding scale left and right, which we know is anachronistic, but it keeps things crisp and fast, okay?
Sure. Yep.
So people on the left are far more likely to talk to strangers about who they're going to vote for.
Yeah.
Like personality-wise, and people on the right are far less likely. Mm-hmm. And so when they're doing these types of polls, whether on the internet or by phone or whatever, people on the right are more likely to hang up and not answer any questions.
Yep.
And so there's like this skew to the left in the polling that they need to find out some way to fix, unless they want to keep it that way, which I'm suspicious they might want to keep the polling the way it is.
Well, I'll tell you that just from my own observations and where I'm at with the contacts that I get, I mean, emails, phone calls, commentary online, our numbers are not what they were before because they don't know how to account for our surge. That's the difference in the polls. If you were to look at it, the Green Party's almost negligible now, and the reason why, we've taken over their voters. A lot of their voters, the Green Party has been the biggest surge supporters for us, in my opinion. I'm seeing it every day on our following groups, holistic practitioners, people that practice Reiki, massage therapy, acupuncture.
Love Reiki. Have you ever tried Reiki?
Dude, I got to try more. I got to be more centered. That's the problem.
No, dude, I'm not joking you. I buddy in my club, I love my club. It's gone. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't been, my health club is gone.
Oh,
it's so sad, dude. It's like,
yeah.
I love that place. I had so many friends there. I never see them anymore. Like, what a disaster it is. It's so healthy, by the way.
I know, but we're getting all these people that are messaging us.
Let me just tell you this story.
Yeah.
So I did some electrical work at his house.
Yep.
And it was, I don't know, whatever, a couple $1,000 or something. He says, okay, look, I'm going to trade you the electrical work for 10 sessions of Reiki with my wife. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What the hell is Reiki? He's like, it's like a spiritual massage, right? And we're like buds, right? So we've done tons of business together in our businesses, right? So he's basically telling me, I'm not paying you because you're my friend and I gave you lots of business, or you can take this instead. That's what he's saying to me. I'm like, okay, fine, bud. I love it, dude. Reiki's amazing. I did 10 sessions. I go, ever since COVID started, I'll be going every month. I love it, dude. I'll tell you, have you ever had lucid dreaming?
Yeah.
The only time I've ever lucid dreamed is in Reiki.
Really? Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's like a state that I could never remember before. Like things that happened to me when I was a kid, and not bad things, good things and bad things. It's almost like, you ever did one of those, we're way off topic here, but I love this stuff. With it. You ever done one of those isolation tanks?
Actually, I have.
Right?
I have, actually.
So it's like that, but then kicked up another 10, 15%.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I don't know. Like, listen,
Go for it, bro.
I've had there's been a few of our followers that have mentioned to me, like, hey, drop in, like we'll give you something on the house, which of course I don't want anything on the house, but I would definitely love to try that. I know my wife currently, our 4 kids, we could definitely use a little bit more quietness, a little bit more comfort.
Do it, bro.
I'm always so busy, but I mean, this is kind of where I'm getting at. I mean, the people that have started to reach out to us as a party, it's not because it's one thing only. It's muzzling their kids in school, or it's COVID principles or mandates, or they see that we actually want to benefit Canadians as a whole. They don't recognize
housing costs.
They see what happened in the Green Party. I'll go back to that one in between. The Zionist, the anti-Zionist comments.
Yeah, sure.
I think Annemie Paul's actually suing her party still for some of the issues, but I mean, they're just a train wreck right now. But I mean, we appreciate where they're going from, but they don't support established parties, a lot of these people.
Sure.
So, and that's great. I mean, we've kind of taken over a lot of surge of that. And I'll tell you one thing, I didn't know a lot about where a lot of these voters were coming from, their intentions before taking over the regional coordinator's job since December. It allowed me to kind of speak to these people a little bit more, and I mean, I've realized that they've become our people. Like, they're with us. Like,
they're with the people.
They want less intervention. They want to just live their lives, and they don't believe in medical interventions being pushed on them. And they've been amazing for us. Especially between the category between like 35 and 45-year-old women with kids. Like, it's crazy. Like, they're everywhere.
I think if there, so I don't think there is no chance. I think there is a chance you could form a government. I think there is.
I hope so.
I don't think it's a enormous chance, but I think there is a chance. Okay, but you know what the weird thing is? I have a lot of friends in politics. Some of them are committed liberals.
Yep.
Okay, I was talking to one of them last night. They hate Trudeau the most.
Yeah.
Okay? They're absolutely embarrassed by the guy.
Well, his vanity project is just off the charts.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. I
mean, these guys aren't assholes. They're just they're liberal part. One of them, one of the guys, I'm not going to say the writing because if he listens to the show sometimes. So he's like, don't identify me. But he's run for a seat. He didn't win the seat. He didn't win the candidacy. But, and he hates Trudeau, dude.
Yeah. Well, listen.
And I'm telling you, you might get, because the last thing they want to do is vote conservative.
Of course.
That's where they're plugging their nose like this, right? For them, like in terms of team, right?
Yeah.
And then the second worst is what? The NDP. They don't want to vote for the NDP either.
Well, that's just promoting even far center or far left.
But for liberals, it's like, ew, right? Like, you have that reaction. You could get a lot of people, liberals, that get into that booth and say, you know what? F it.
Yeah.
Go on, Max, do your thing. Let's go back to normal. We'll figure it out at the election. Actually, you don't know, man.
Well, so it's funny that you said that about Trump earlier with Hillary, and a lot of people voted for Trump for the aesthetic of, having the entertainer in office, right? So, and that was it, the spoiled vote in a sense, where they're like, I just want to see what he'll do, so I'm going to mark Trump, you know what I mean? But in the end, it turned out his policies were amazing.
Sure.
He benefited the country, he benefited their economic prosperity. People
like him or hate him, because he's actually not that likable, actually.
I love his policies.
Sure.
I love everything they've done. I support a lot of the Republicans in the U.S., but there's a lot of Democrats I also support because Canadians are not like the American system. I mean, the People's Party, everybody's like, oh, you guys are like Republicans. We're not Republicans.
No.
Like, we're not. Like, Canadians are very different. We see our policies very different. Yet, sure, we're more conservatism than anything, but some Republicans are just really far conservative.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's almost too much. Like, you look at abortion stances in the U.S., it's very defined. Here in Canada, not so much.
The debate is more nuanced in Canada.
It's very much so. And I mean, it's not that any of this stuff is off the table for conversation by any means. I mean...
But listen, I'm going to talk about the abortion issue, okay?
Yeah, right.
What gets forgotten is that there's a ton of vulnerable women in the middle there that are watching mud fly over their heads while they're suffering.
100%.
And these people have a time frame, okay? It's 9 months. Okay, where they have to decide what they're going to do. And people on either side, there's some mudslinging and all that. Look, vulnerable women need help. Let's start with that. Okay, how do you want to help them? Like, forget about like all the mudslinging and the craziness that goes on, the labeling, the name calling. That's disgusting. There's people suffering in the middle here, and they need help. I did a lot of podcasts for the Pregnancy Care Center, non-political. They help women in crisis pregnancies. You talk to those women, buddy, you're going to change you're going to back away from your hard stance on either end of prostitute and pregnant. Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, let's have a conversation with that, right? You start talking about that. There's some real meat hook realities that are avoided in that debate by people taking these extreme stances on other sides and calling each other names. You could have a real debate about how to help women. That would be a real nice thing to do, actually.
Well, listen, I mean, this is, like I said before, we don't have anything that we're not willing to not talk about. That's what makes us
Well, you want to
different.
help the Canadian people, and that's what I feel.
We want to do what's right. And what's right is that we want to hear everybody's point of view. We're not going to discredit it. We're going to bring it in. I mean, the COVID narrative is one that we probably are going to literally look at a little bit more hard, but that being said, everything else is on the table. I mean, everybody talks about disability benefits. You look at our veterans' responses. You look at abortion talks, pro-life, pro-choice. You look at religious freedoms. You look at the interpretation of our immigration system. You look at cross-border trade. You look at
interprovincial trade.
Yeah, correct, interprovincial trade. So then you're looking at the dairy cartel. I mean, that's another one. You're looking at regenerative farming, which is basically something that just completely blew my mind, how many farmers have reached out to us to talk about organic farming, regenerative soil.
Sure.
And you know what? That's completely something we've started adopting in the policies
I've seen
now.
That. Yeah.
Actually,
talk about environmentally friendly. Come on, let's get going.
Well, not only that, I mean, literally, I was actually kind of responsible for a lot of this. I was reaching out to a lot of farmers, Simcoe Gray, Simcoe North, and a lot of them were starting to talk to us. We have some great supporters of regenerative farming and organic farming, and they started, saying, "Hey, how can I help?" And they've never voted before.
Oh my God!
And this is the thing: a lot of these, people feel disenfranchised from established politics. And so they started saying, hey, listen, like, you guys aren't politicians yet. Like, we have a chance to actually influence the platform here a little bit. And we welcome that. So we had people reaching out to us with emails, and I had phone calls all the time with people that have never voted. And like, well, what about this? And what about this? And if it's a good idea and it's something that I can get behind, I submit it right away to HQ. And I literally write it up as a business plan. You can ask Jim and Belinda Carolios. I've sent them stuff as well. I speak to Daniel Tyree, who's our executive director within the party all the time. Probably hates that I'm always on him all the time. But I'm a platform and programs kind of guy. Like, I really enjoy this, like policy review. I'm into politics. I'm a bit of a politics geek. So I follow everything from councilors in U.S. cities and Santa Fe and California to governors and senators to sitting trustees and school board trustees in Canada. Like, it doesn't matter.
You know what? That politics is so much more important anyway. Like, if I had a message to people, I hate to say it, but other than the COVID narrative, which is dominating everything, the federal government doesn't do much.
I'm you know what? I'm
like, to the average Canadian, what is it? Defense, foreign affairs,
budgets.
What else do they do? They don't do much. And oftentimes, who your school trustee and your mayor is, and your city councilor, that is so important, folks. It's so important.
Well, I'm going to comment on that a little bit because that's my baby. Like, I'm into municipal politics more than anything. I'm actually contemplating a run for mayor.
Yeah, you told me that.
So I've been approached by a group of businessmen there to maybe step in and clean up what's happened there. Jeff Lehman, to me, is just a complete disgrace what's happened there. He's just virtue signaling 101 all over with all these socialist councilors everywhere. Just literally bankrupting the city. 17% tax hikes in 6 years. Like, it's just crazy. Like, one of the highest tax areas in the whole country is in Barrie now.
And but don't you guys dump your raw sewage into Lake Simcoe?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that still true?
No, they do have a treatment facility.
Do they?
There. Yeah. But it's literally cost overrun after cost overrun on that city. They don't know how to manage it properly.
I don't think they care about it.
Well, literally, we had one of the highest unemployments in all of Ontario.
No, but like, I think the fact is a lot of these, the mayor of Peterborough is the same way. I don't think they care about the fiscal side. Like, it's not that they're bad at it. It's not that they're not trying. Like, I literally don't think they care. It's like I'm here to promote my left wing agenda, and move it forward. There's no sense being in a municipality is about clearing streets. It's about building roads. It's about effective government.
I'll go even further. A city is supposed to be a corporation.
Mm.
Your job is there.
It's a corporation of the city of Mississauga.
To run the. That's
you're right.
entirely
That's
how
the
it's
name
registered.
of it.
It's
Yeah, that's
actually
the
a
number.
corporation.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
what people want their government to do for them is not their place or business. Their place is to administer the function and the infrastructure for the residents.
Garbage collection.
Correct. I mean, you're looking at plows, street maintenance, sewer and water, gas. But even gas itself, most of it's privatized. So
Sure.
you're literally bringing that in under a contract. But you look at what happened here in Toronto with, John Tory. They blocked out non-unions from applying for contracts within the city of Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how many businesses does that affect in Toronto? Probably like 80% of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they are more than capable and big enough to handle these contracts. And they would have been cheaper, far cheaper. But they didn't, because while heaven forbid we fight against the unions, right?
But is the PPC anti-union?
We are not anti-union. The one thing we are is literally we look at what is the cost savings measures, what it is for the application of that service. And we want to see that's transparent. These unions are high funded. They usually fund social programs, right? And they back them. They literally are promoting, for example, I'm a member of PSAC. And
What's PSAC for the listeners?
Public Service Alliance of Canada.
And that's a union?
Yes, that's the largest public service union in Canada. And it's literally, in the last election, they were telling everybody to vote Liberal. And I'm like, why is a union stepping in on this?
Yeah, so I got a point I want to make to you.
Go ahead.
I think, you remember how we talked about in the beginning that when you're talking about immigration, you first have to separate the three so that you don't get confused. Because a lot of people get confused between refugees. People say, you're not going to let any immigrants in. And they're actually talking, what about the Syrians? It's like, that's not what we're talking about.
No.
You know what I mean? Yes, we're going to have a refugee policy. Of course, Canada will take its responsibility in the world. But the same thing with the unions. I think there's a huge difference between private sector unions and public sector unions.
Absolutely.
And I don't think it's acknowledged. I think my phone went on thing here. I just got turned off. The private sector unions, I don't care what the private sector union does. You make a deal with the Air Canada Pilots Union, you guys are making a deal with Air Canada, that's got nothing to do with me.
Yep.
You guys want to get together and vote a certain way, no problem. Right? That's up to you guys. It's public sector unions that I take a serious look at. So again, you separate the private sector unions and you look at the public sector unions. How is it that they work for the people of the province or the country or the municipality? How is it that you're allowed to affect politics? Like, that is such a conflict of interest.
Not only that, they want to affect change.
They're trying to get their people in there so they can get more gains for their union workers.
Right.
That is so wrong.
But here, I'm going to take this one step further, and this is my experience. And just so you know, I was a steward in my union. I was a chief steward for years. And I basically just ended up saying, okay, I'm out of this. Like, they wouldn't adopt any changes. The way I see unions, the way my experience is, for my agency that I work for, I support what we do. I support our agency. I support what the mandate is. I support what the goal is. And the union should be there to support that.
Yes.
If you're not there to support that and you're promoting things that are antagonistic, then the point of the union is literally just to rile up, controversy. And I don't want that. The union is supposed to be there to support its employer in a sense. Yes, you have the right to negotiate contracts and showcase what it is, but it's supposed to be a mutual respect thing.
Sure.
And in the public service especially, they don't respect the union, and the union doesn't respect the employer, so it's always antagonistic. And what good do we get out of that?
You got to start thinking win-win in any negotiation. You can't think lose-win.
That's not what's happening.
But in the public sector too, though, you're not dealing with a person who's got skin in the game on the other end.
No.
A buddy of mine, someone I know pretty well. I don't know if he's a friend, but I would say I know him well. He has a big company. He's got a lot of employees, and it's unionized. He says, I love the union. We sit down every couple of years, we cut a deal, and I never get sued by anybody because it's all handled by the union. You know what I'm saying? And it works great for him. And I wouldn't say he loves union, but he thinks it's better than having a non-union environment where the rules aren't laid out. So unions can work very, very well for their workers and for the company.
Well, it's supposed to benefit
Exactly.
everybody. Like, your compensation is supposed to be commensurate on what the production is of that agency.
Sure.
If the agency is faltering and not actually, fulfilling its mandate, then there's a problem within the agency, and the union itself can also help fulfill that mandate better. But we don't support each other anymore, and that's the problems in our unionized sectors. You look at Unifor as a big example of that, just pushing hard-line left stances because they just know that it's better for their people, right? And it's better for their employment, but they basically rape and pillage the employer for everything they got, to the point where they're having to contemplate moving out of the country.
Sure.
And that is our problem. That would be the one problem that the People's Party would look at and say, listen, we can't have this anymore. We need to have our industrial complex being brought to Canada. We need to create jobs. We need to have a stable reform. We need to have a stable economy, industrial spectrum that allows Canadians to build on that.
I want to give an example of how unions can affect policy and how it's underhandedly advantageous to them. So many union wages are indexed to minimum wage, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they're indexed to minimum wage. So they're a multiple of minimum wage. So then you hear about unions advocating to raise the minimum wage. Okay? So they advocate for this, right? But really, they don't care about the
Everyone
person
else.
working at McDonald's, dude.
No.
They're like, I got a scam. You know what we'll do? We're going to start, putting out ads to increase the minimum wage because the poor workers at McDonald's and all that, they're not making enough money. But that's how we'll disguise our 40% pay hike.
Well, you basically just described the entire NDP platform. That's literally what it is. Like, it's how to disguise what we want. Oh, we're going to tax the rich. We're going to go after their millions of dollars. But what's that going to happen to production?
No, but what is rich?
Supply. Well, under their eyes, anybody, I believe it was at 250,000.
I would think. Listen, I think it's less than that. I think it's less than that. I think when you're talking about household income of over $100,000, I think now you're a rich guy. Your household, like, that's everybody that's working two people working a decent job. They're going to have that range of income. So I don't buy this 250. I think it's a lot lower than that. And they want to take the money and they want to move the needle as far as they can over to here. The problem with that is if you move it too far, you start to kill the other end.
Course.
Right? And if you move the needle too far the other way, you start to see people falling through the cracks. Mm-hmm. Right? So where that needle is very, very, very important, folks. And so, tell me about Max Bernier.
Oh, listen, I've known him now for 3 years. Mm-hmm. I knew about him before when he was running in the Conservative Party. I knew about his processes. I knew about any of the voting process that he was involved in. But I myself was an NDP or Liberal before. So when people are like, well, you guys are far right, I'm like, I was not. For a long time, I supported Jack Layton for a long time. I still think he's one of the best parliamentarians we ever had. He was one of the most approachable men, and the reality is he was probably one of the most honest. I still remember to this day going to his funeral in downtown Toronto where all those speakers were. It was probably one of my first real introductions into politics that I really felt Canadianized, that everybody came together with unity over a parliamentarian, right? So, I really appreciated that, and it really hit me really deep. But then going forward, now being into the People's Party and having a leader like Maxime who speaks up for everybody, this man is beyond reproach. Like, he's done everything. I mean, this man's been across the country. He shakes hands. He hugs everybody. If he hasn't died of COVID yet, I don't know who's going to die. I mean, he's shaken more hands. He's hugged everybody. I'm like, It doesn't matter whether you're rich, poor, black, Asian, white, Hispanic, gay, lesbian, trans, it doesn't matter. Maxime Bernier just treats you the same way. And that's how the People's Party functions right now. I don't believe this mainstream media hype that they're trying to discredit us. That's only because they're scared about their own funding. But Maxime Bernier is right down to earth. He allows us to do our job as a regional coordinator. He doesn't interfere. Party doesn't tell me what to do. I literally am able to operate with free reign within my party. I operate 19 candidates, 5 regions, and the way it operates is I'm very hands-off. I allow them, you can attest to that, you've spoken to Renee. I'm like, I don't tell him what to do. I'm like, if he's got questions, he reaches out to me. Sometimes I'll see something online or I'll see something that was said or, an action that's been omitted, and I'll kind of correct it as much as I can.
Stay on message or
but
try to avoid that,
But we are very open. Like, I mean, we're all friends within the party. There's no controversies going on. And Max is the leader of that. Like, I mean, we have events all the time. We had one recently. I mean, he loves my wife. He spends all his time with my dog and my kids. He's a nice man. He's very genuine. He's down to earth. He's not fancy by any means. He's definitely the most in shape leader of all of them. Like, oh my God, nobody else runs marathons. You know, all I can say is that the people in Beauce really don't understand. I think they forgot how much he did for them in that riding when he wasn't elected in 2019, and they saw that his rival took over and did nothing, absolutely nothing. Didn't talk to anybody, didn't speak out to anyone. He was basically one of the leaders of the dairy cartel. Didn't do nothing. So Max is now actually in that riding. He's very tight within that riding. We think he's probably going to take it. We'd love to see Max get elected, but the party is more than just Max. Sure. And that's one thing that we really need to kind of put out there. There's so many people who think that we're kind of a one-trick pony, maybe, and that Max would be that perennial, pony that we're riding on his back. But it's not the case. Like, I mean, you were to look across the country, we have some candidates like Mark Friesen. Are you familiar with Mark Friesen?
Sure. Yeah, I follow him on Twitter.
Yeah, like Mark Friesen is amazing. He speaks out on behalf of everyone. He's at all these events. Very intelligent man. You look at Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson, who's not a candidate this time around, but she's still promoting the party with her values out in Alberta. Very religious background centric, but she's got a huge following. Then you look at, my candidates themselves, we're everything. We got a little bit of everything. We got a school teacher, we got electricians, we got business owners that do tech export. We got myself, I'm a customs immigration guy, previous paramedic, military experience, bilingual Canadian, lived in every province. Then you got
geoscientist.
Yeah, geoscientist. That's right. Like, I mean, then we have an engineer, climate engineer, actually, like literally responsible for data implementation. So we're more than just one thing or another.
We'd have to have that in order to form either a shadow cabinet or
that's right.
Yeah, or a real cabinet.
Well, the Liberals don't care. They put you in office whether you have experience or not.
Yeah, Chrystia Freeland's everything. She can run any portfolio.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at Patty Hajdu.
Yeah, I don't want to get into Patty. I have a particular hate on for her.
Yeah.
That vitamin D question that came out when she just completely dismissed it. I mean, talk about the science being a religion. That's her religion for sure. And she's so negative.
All the Liberals are.
They're so negative. Like, the other thing too is that you watch them and there's like Justin Trudeau is filled with hatred. Like, you just watch him speak, and then if you were to take Max on one screen speaking and put Justin Trudeau on the other and turn off the volume, you'll just get negativity from Trudeau and positivity from Max. The one thing I love that I saw online recently was that photographer that disrupted the rally, I think it was in Manitoba. I don't know if you saw that. And he was like, there was almost a fight because he was insulting people and people were getting a little bit hot. And then Max invited him to speak.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what a beautiful moment. And then after, there's a picture of Max and him. We're talking after. Like, that's such a wonderful moment for Canada. Mainstream media doesn't talk about it at all.
Well, why would we? I mean, listen, the man
that was so beautiful the way he handled that.
The man got egged on the head.
I know. He didn't care.
And literally, you know what the party did? Nothing. We escorted that gentleman out of there. We're not even sure if charges were levied. I don't know. But, that's not how the other parties operate. No. I'm like, we understand that.
Trudeau gets hit with a little piece of gravel and he freaks out as if he's been assaulted. Or give me a break.
It's
Like, I'm not saying that's right.
No.
I'm not saying that's right.
I was just about to say that. I mean, we don't support any of that, and we don't want any of our members or supporters doing anything like that. That's wrong.
But we're just examining the reaction of the politician to negativity. He's outraged. Look, man, you can't walk among your own people. Like, you got to look yourself in the mirror, Justin, and say, why is it that everywhere you stop, you're surrounded by people that hate you?
Because he doesn't get it. It's his vanity project.
Yeah.
His ego's too big for his head. I mean, how many times is Sophie Gregoire Trudeau on camera telling him to rein in his ego? You're not God. I mean, hot mics, numerous times. Not once or twice, numerous times.
Mhm.
I mean, the man's ego is just bigger than what he wants to implement, and that's the biggest problem. I'm like, and then if you're a supporter of the Liberal Party and support of Justin Trudeau, it's because you're dismissing the facts. You're dismissing Aga Khan. You're dismissing SNC Lavalin. You're dismissing the We Charity. You're dismissing, all the.
Did you say you said SNC Lavalin in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Blackface.
Yeah, blackface. You're dismissing, the fact that he calls himself a feminist, but then he literally disenfranchises his best
Jane
female
Philpott, Wilson, Jody Wilson-Raybould.
That's right. And then now you have Selena Cesar Chavez, who is, another disgruntled Liberal MP who is promoting, unfortunately, a Conservative Party member. And she did that openly the other day online. And that's like, come on, do you not see what's happening under the Liberal Party? Like, they don't even adopt this. And I have this argument with my father, who, by the way, was a politician. And he actually ran for the Liberals in Medicine Hat, Alberta, after 2 terms as mayor there, which, I'm always scared to actually admit that out loud, but the reality is I respect his integrity to actually run for and face whatever values it is that he has. That's probably where I got this from. We might be on opposite spectrums sometimes, but that's a big influence in my life, right? So somebody who told me to stand up for my community, stand up for people around me, and stand up for the values that my family actually entertains, and this is what my values are. So I got that from him, and we might not support the same party. But even now, we still get into these little squabbles back and forth where we start talking about politics. And his almost always comes down to heartstring policies and identity politics. And we don't play that game. Like, we don't do it. The Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. Your religion is your right. Your freedom of speech is your right. Like, we don't believe in hate by any means. But what Trudeau is trying to implement on hate speech and censorship laws
is hate.
It's actually hate. You're not going against hate speech. You're going against people who oppose your narrative on every aspect. Mm-hmm. That's what you're going at. That's censorship. That's not hate speech. So
I got a joke for you.
You ever?
Ready? Justin Trudeau is a feminist.
How so?
That's the joke, buddy. Come on. It's just so ridiculous that he there's like a national. Well, if the PPC wins, then there isn't. But there's almost like a cognitive dissonance going on.
It's a great term. I use it in all my speeches. Too.
Yeah, there's like something or like a hypnotic effect that's happening right now. That that where the leakage is into the PPC. So the leakage comes out, the holistic therapy. I don't want to get a vaccine. That's my whole life is about not doing those types of things, right? And then they leak into the PPC, and they're like, oh wow, actually this platform is pretty good. I didn't realize it till I found a party that was not forcing me to take a medical intervention, and then I read their platform and I listened to their leader, who I haven't been able to hear from because of the mainstream media, and I actually quite like it. And then you have these different people coming into the People's Party. It's really a wonderful movement. Mm-hmm. Do you have any more final comments? There's the camera right there if you want to tell people. It's Tuesday now. It's coming up Monday.
Yeah, well, listen, there's still time left. You got to really look inwards. See where your family lies. See what your values are. See what your beliefs are. Do you really want your kids to be muzzled in a school? Do you want the teachers and school board trustees to have more say than you under your parental rights? Do you want to see the Charter of Rights and freedoms actually upheld by our legal jurisdiction here in Canada? Do you want to see movement, change? Do you want to see Canada actually become a leader again? That is the point of where we're getting at. We want freedom, liberty, smaller government, smaller interventions. We want to see our small businesses thrive. We want to see the country actually adopt policies that are putting Canadians first. We want to actually tackle our debt, tackle our deficit, and actually put an end to the censorship that you're seeing everywhere across Canada. It's up to you. You have the right. You have the time to vote. Go exercise that democracy. Go do it. Put that X on the box. Make sure People's Canada is actually the choice that you're making. Don't be fearful of splitting the vote. We're not the same party. We don't want what the Conservative Party wants. They're going to hold you down. They're going to mandate your employment. They're going to mandate and muzzle your kids. They don't care. They've never once said they want open, transparent debate and dialogue. That's what we want. We want all that, and that's why O'Toole is scared of us. That's why they never promoted Max to get him into the debates. That's why nobody stood up for us, actually, except for Annemie Paul, who actually was a great response to the Rebel News when they asked her. And she said that all parties should have been invited, especially us, who are polling now everywhere from anywhere from 8 to 12 to 15%. It is time for change. So stand up for your values. Stand up for Canada. Be proud again.
Daniel Boucher, thank you for being a guest on the Get a Grip on Life podcast, my man. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it immensely. Folks, if you made it to the end here, you know, I love you guys, you listeners out there, and I know I'm speaking on behalf of Dan as well. I feel like I'm just coming down now. It was such a great conversation with Dan. But listen, if you want to start your own podcast, man, don't mess around trying to you can't download an app and the next day you have the Joe Rogan experience. It's not how it works. Okay, if you're serious, you're a real estate agent, you're a holistic, a Reiki practitioner, you're holistic. Start a podcast on it, man, and come down to Get a Grip Studios right here, Markham and Steeles, right next to the 404, and fully virtual. That's right, virtual before virtual was a thing, folks. Go to getagripstudios.com. Thanks for listening.